And maybe I'll message it to you, but it starts with the way God helps us trust him. And then it goes into, did Jesus really believe God had forsaken him? Yeah. And then it ends with the God who never forsakes. God's never forsaken anyone. In fact, even in the end, when Jesus returns, he's not going to forsake anyone then either. People are going to forsake him.
Yes.
Adam forsook God.
Right.
He ran from God.
Right.
He left God. God didn't forsake Adam. God came after Adam. So God has never forsaken anyone in the sense that we thought of it. But if you look, Dwight, in Luke 2, when the serpent is tempting Jesus, if you read after the temptation is done, it says, and the devil left him until a more opportune time would come to tempt him again. Okay, so the more opportune time to tempt Jesus again was when he was on the cross. Right. That's when the whole thing went down again. So now the Pharisees come to Jesus while he's hanging on the cross, and they start saying the same thing that the serpent said. If you are the Son of God, come down off the cross. Then they also started saying he trusted in God. Where is his God now? Right. Let his God come and save him if he'll have him. So they were declaring to Jesus that he was forsaken by God. Okay? Now, if you notice in the first temptation in Luke, Jesus combated the word of the serpent with the word. Mm-hmm. That's what he did. He came with the word. So when the Pharisees came to Jesus and said, where is your God now? Basically telling him God had forsaken him. In the same way Jesus combated the devil in the first temptation with the word, he combated the devil again at the cross with the word. And what word did he combat it with? Psalm 22. Now Psalm 22 begins with, my God, why have you forsaken me? But in the Jewish mind, a psalm isn't broken down into verses. It's a whole thought. It isn't one verse. The whole psalm is the thought. Right. So Jesus quoted Psalm 22 because if you go and read Psalm 22, it talks about how the guy's trusting God. And it talks about how God hath not abhorred the affliction of the afflicted one. That God has not hid his face from him, but he hears him when he cries. And so Jesus was basically shooting the truth back at them when they came at him with the lie. Oh, you think God's forsaken me? Go read Psalm 22. Go read Psalm 22. And I actually believe when we talk about encourage yourself in the Lord, I actually believe he was being encouraged in the truth in that moment by Psalm 22. Yeah. I could see his heart reciting Psalm 22. And I'm not going to read every verse, but if you read the verses in there, it talks about a guy trusting God. In the middle of the bulls of Bashan circling them, devouring with the mouths. And then it gets down to around verse 24, I think, and that's when it says, for he has not abhorred the affliction of the afflicted one. He has not hid his face from him. Yeah. So, the middle of Psalm 22 says that God didn't hide his face from Jesus. Right. And Jesus is the one speaking there. That's the mind of Christ coming out of David. And so there's a contradiction there unless we understand the totality of what's going on. We know there's really no contradiction, but what's going on there is the lie of the serpent is trying to come tell Jesus he's forsaken by God in the same way Adam believed he was forsaken by God. And Jesus quoted the word to combat the lie that God had forsaken him. The word was Psalm 22 because Psalm 22 clearly says he has not hid his face from me. Yes.